Okay, welcome everyone. It's Tuesday night. It's time for another Zoomcast. This week's episode is episode 30. It's Tuesday, January 26, 2021, and we're welcoming you here for this episode where we're going to talk about USA Hockey Week across America. As most of you know, every year annually, USA Hockey in February celebrates Hockey Week across America, where we as an organization in whole, not only national staff here in Colorado Springs, but all of our volunteers, all of our members across the country. We celebrate all the success, everything there is to really cherish about the game of ice hockey within America. And it's a great week, driven heavily by our communication staff and all of our different departments here at USA Hockey. And of course, we have our own officiating component of that, known as the Meet the NHL Officials Program. I am BJ Ringrose, manager of the Officiating Education Program. And joining me for this episode are three panelists, two of which are on-ice officials themselves who have participated in the Meet the NHL Officials Program, as well as one who represents an NHL club and has worked as an NHL host, an actual host to host the incoming guests that participate in the program. And they're going to share their experiences and other information over the course of the hour. And of course, you have the opportunity to ask any questions that you may have as we proceed through the next hour here. So just to introduce our various panelists, starting with Ethan Trexler. Ethan comes from the Arlington, Texas area. That's basically just the suburbs of Dallas, Texas. Been a USA Hockey official for about 9 years now, and worked his way up through the grassroots development and worked his way in now where he works ACHA College Club, in addition to junior hockey down there in his area. Also joining us is Erika Greenen, comes from Romeoville, Illinois, which is the Chicago area. Been an official herself for 7 years. That's after playing NCAA hockey as a player. And then she's worked her way up through the grassroots ranks, been through our various summer development camps on the women's end, has now actually earned not only an IIHF license, and she's going through that. For those of you who watched our last episode, two episodes ago, where Scott Zelkin hosted an IIHF officiating episode, Shannon's actually in that program right now and working her way up through the tiers of IIHF events with the goal of taking it as far as she can. In addition to that, she also works the National Women's Hockey League, which, as you can see, she's kind of sort of in a tracksuit right now. She literally stepped off the ice about 10 minutes ago from working an NWHL game going on there in Lake Placid. For those of you who may not be aware of it right now, the NWHL is hosting their very, very, very abbreviated season, the Isabel Cup out there in Lake Placid. And Erika is one of our 10 officials, all-female crew out there working and representing USA Hockey and working those games. And she had a barn burner that literally went down to the last minute where I forget exactly who scored. It was Minnesota Whitecaps, I believe, scored with about 15 seconds left to go in the game to take the game to 1-0 finish. Saved us all overtime and saved her a shootout so she can join us on time. Lastly, joining us, Shannon Webster. Shannon lives out there in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area, although she's a native of Colorado. Played NCAA hockey at Boston College, and after that, she joined the ranks of USA Hockey as a national staff member, working in our program services business. So growing the game from a grassroots level, working hand in hand with our local hockey associations to see membership growth across players and all that. And worked there for about 7 years. And then she left us to go join the Pittsburgh Penguins, where she now serves as the director of youth hockey out there. And she's had that position for a few years now. So that's our panelists. And we will get to the show very shortly here. But as we typically do with the USA Hockey Zoomcast, we're going to start real quickly here with a poll. So I'm going to launch that now. And you should be seeing that in front of you. Question number 1, do you watch the officials while watching an upper level game? And you might watch it in person, or you watch it on television. Maybe you're watching an IIHF again, like our World Juniors or the professional ranks or NCAA. Do you watch the officials when you watch those games? Question number 2, have you ever met a National Hockey League official in person? So have you ever had the opportunity to actually meet and interact an NHL official, referee, linesman, whomever, even possibly retired? Maybe you met one of the guys who have recently retired and you had the chance to interact with one of them. Third question, do you have a favorite NHL official that you enjoy watching work? I say it over and over again, being an official is really not that much different from being a player. Young players always have their heroes that they enjoy watching them skate up and down the ice. you know, basically deliver hard hits, score goals, be playmakers out there. They're their heroes. And it's really no different for young officials or any officials. We all have our heroes, our mentors, the people that we enjoy watching out there and aspire to be like. So we'll keep that poll going for about another 5 seconds here, and then we will take a look at our answers. Okay, pencils down and sharing the answers. And the first question, do you watch the officials while watching an upper level game live or on television? And it's kind of a 50-50, actually no, it wasn't really so much a 50-50 split. 50% of you said yes, and the other 50% yes, actually more than the actual game itself. So some of you are casually watching those officials as they work their game, but at the same time, looks like at least half of you are actually watching the game, watching the officials themselves more than the actual hockey. And I can certainly relate to that. Have you ever met a National Hockey League official in person? And it looks like about 2/3 of you said yes, and about 1/3 of you said no. So quite a few of you have had those interactions to meet your heroes, meet the some of the best officials in the world, and have that chance to interact with them and pick their brain a little bit. Question number 3, do you have a favorite NHL official that you enjoy watching work? And that one is a little over half of you have a favorite, and a little under half of you say, no, I enjoy watching them all. So thank you for your engagement on that. We certainly value, and the polls are just really about fun. Unfortunately, there's no prizes or anything like that. But we just really enjoy seeing your feedback as we you know, put those out there and get you to interact with us. So with that, we'll dive into the show. And I'm just going to actually share my screen and show a really brief video that kind of gives an idea of the spirit and the mentality of the Meet the NHL Officials program and what it's all about.
Hey there, hockey fans. Welcome to Gotta Love New Jersey Hockey. I'm Brian Lanigan, and today we're here at the Prudential Center where Andrew and Trent are going to become NHL referees. Well, not yet, but they're hanging out with them, and they're going to find out what it takes to become one. How did you start refereeing?
My dad used to referee when he grew up in Canada, and he got me into it when I was 13 years old, and I've been doing it ever since.
Well, my dad first told me, hey, do you want to do this? And so I was like, yeah, I'll try it. And as I got more and more games, I just really developed a liking for it. So I became more interested in it and kept going.
When I was 12, I enjoyed playing and I wanted more ice time, and I thought of it, and my father brought up the idea to me and said it's a great way to learn the game, see more about the game, and get more ice time.
So what has been the most exciting part of being a referee so far?
I would say working in the playoffs, because I just recently worked my first playoff game, and that's just a great environment.
Where do you hope your refereeing career takes you?
I'd like it to take me all the way to the NHL. That's the dream.
Well, wherever it takes me, but I would like to get to the NHL. That's a huge goal for me.
Why is it important to have Andrew and Trent both sit in with you all and experience what you do?
I think, in terms of your goals, to be able to meet people who are working at the level that your goals are, to actually put a face to the guys that you're watching on TV and get to sit down and talk with the guys that you idolize. It makes the goal a little more real, and it just it's so cool to just bounce things off of them and learn how they got there and what helped them get there where they are.
That was exhilarating. It was a sellout crowd. It was just everybody looking at us, cheering us on. So it was fun.
Now you think you want to become a ref now for sure?
Absolutely.
Most definitely.
Trent and Andrew had an amazing experience out on the ice and in the locker room with the NHL referees. And remember, folks, your story is our story, and you gotta love New Jersey hockey.
Okay, so as you see, that video kind of gives you a sort of an idea and captures the spirit of what this program is really all about. And I do apologize for Shannon for showing a New Jersey Devils clip and basically showing your rivals there. I should have given you a heads up on that, but that's all I had as far as showing a video. But really, it's about reaching out and giving the opportunity for grassroots officials to actually go to an NHL building and basically sit and interact with some of the best officials in the world. The NHL officials, they're very, very dedicated, and they work really, really hard at what they do, and they've worked their tails off to get to where they are. You saw Tim Chimalewski there. He's a native of Colorado, actually in Colorado Springs, right here where the USAH Hockey office is. He worked his way up to the grassroots rank, went to all of our camps, and made all the right choices and put the work in and worked his tail off and earned that opportunity to wear the NHL shield on the front of his sweater. And he's representing us very, very well out there. We can't think of a better representative. On top of that, you saw in the video, the gentleman there with the gray hoodie and the black ball cap in the locker room, that was Brian Murphy. Brian Murphy just recently retired. He's taken over as the director of officiating for Hockey East now, but still a dedicated USA Hockey member, regularly gives back to our development programs, and we use his insight of all of his experience in professional hockey to grow our programs, and we love consulting with them and engaging with them as much as we can. Just to kind of get the Q&A going, and as I said, as a reminder of all our participants, you have the opportunity to ask questions as we go through this. Just use that Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to pose any questions, not only to our officiating participants, but as well as our NHL representative. But I'll start the questioning off, and I'll kick it off just to Ethan real quickly. Give us just a quick rundown, Ethan, and feel free to unmute yourself as a heads up. How'd you get started in officiating?
So I was living in College Station, Texas at the time. That was where I went to high school for all 4 years. And then after I got done playing, obviously nobody wants a 5'4" goaltender. So my thing was I didn't want to give up the game. I still love the game of hockey. So the next best thing was for me to become official. Started working down in Houston, working some of their house league travel games, as well as some games in College Station to get my feet under me. And then as I continued to do it for the next year or so, I really wanted to do it as part of my passion for the game. So I figured the next best move for me would be to move up to Dallas, as well as finish college. Obviously, Dallas is the headquarters of hockey in Texas. So I figured if I was going to grow anywhere or grow as an official, for me, the best move was to come to Dallas. And then from there, it just took off after about 2 years of living here, as far as the opportunity to do juniors, college. So it was good for me.
Okay. When you were going, before you actually participated, you participated back in 2015 in the Hockey Week and
Correct.
Meet the Officials program. Had you met an NHL official before that moment?
I had not, no.
Okay, so the first time there. And I'll pass this back over to Erika now. Erika, where did you get your start in officiating? Just a brief bio there.
Yeah, so I was living in, finished college, so done playing. Didn't really know what to do. Kind of, was living in Nashville at the time. It's like, well, just find something to do, get back in the game. And that's how, I was like, let's try this. Didn't know where it would take me. And, it's been fun and, getting started out there. And then, just moving up.
Okay. And then before you participated in 2016 in the Meet the Officials program, NHL Officials program, had you met an NHL official but prior to that?
No, I hadn't.
Okay. And I think back right now, the process for this program, we actually have an online nomination portal that people can be nominated through now. It's run through usahockey.com. You can go in there, either you yourself, you want to nominate yourself, or you as a parent or a coach, you want to nominate one of your players. You can use that portal to nominate the person. But I think when the two of you participated, I believe it was more of a grassroots local selection process where we knew that Dallas was hosting a game on the such and such night during Hockey Week. So we reached out to your local representatives. Who do you feel really will represent you well and deserves this opportunity to meet the NHL officials? Same thing with you, Erika. You were living down in Nashville, Tennessee at that time. So we reached out to your state supervisor, Tony Wheeler, down there and said, who would represent us well, and who do you think really deserves this opportunity from the grassroots standpoint to interact with these guys? So you were selected. Go back to Erika. How did you find out about it, and kind of what were your first thoughts?
I have a state supervisor just like, hey, do you want to do this? And I really didn't know what it was. And I'm like, yeah, sure, like that'd be cool, to meet, if I want to do it. And I said, yeah. And, they all got it set up and, came to the game.
So it's kind of dropped on you more or less, you're saying?
Yeah, well, I asked if I was interested, and we didn't have a whole ton of like new officials in our area too. So
That's true too. You only have such a limited fan base of young grassroots officials coming up. I believe it's growing, but at the same time there are, and a lot of those officials also, we run into that occasionally with scheduling is, you may have an official who would do well with this program, but he happens to be playing on that Saturday night or that Friday night. He's playing in a tournament or something like that, and he can't go. So they kind of run into those roadblocks occasionally. Ethan, how'd you find out about it? And what were your first thoughts when you were contacted?
Kind of the same thing as Erika. I was contacted by Steve Henderson, who's our state supervisor, and also Scott Houth, who was our association president at the time. They asked me if it was something I'd be interested, and I didn't hesitate the opportunity because, I mean, it's not every day you get to go downstairs and meet an NHL official and pick their brain for, 20, 30 minutes before a game and see what they do. So I made sure I didn't pass it up because I knew it would help myself as an official grow.
No doubt. It's great that you got that opportunity. And I guess we'll go back to you, Ethan. As you were kind of leading up to it, hopefully you got at least a couple weeks heads up notice that you're going to participate in this program. Was there any kind of prep work or anything like that? Did you start thinking about the types of questions that you wanted to ask those officials when you got there?
Yeah, for sure. I actually I was a little bit of a nerd. I had like a list in my pocket and I was memorizing it before I walked in because I didn't want to pull out a piece of paper. But, it was just, general questions of how do you guys get started? What do you guys do during the season, during the off season to stay in shape with all the travel that they do? Opportunities. How did you guys get to where you are now? How did you guys get there? But yeah, for sure. I definitely was prepared. I didn't want to, not ask a wrong question. So
that's kind of even the word. Look, the worst thing you want to do is walk out of that locker room and just basically be banging your head against the wall. I wish I had asked it, or I wish I had thought. That's the last thing you want to have.
Exactly. Yep.
How about you, Erika? Any prep or anything like that, or just kind of wing it when you got in the locker room?
I mean, I had like a few questions, just like Ethan, what I wanted to ask, like how they prepared, how they got there, why they started, and yeah, I guess the rest of it just kind of winged it around the conversation. And yeah.
Okay. Now I got a little bit of a test for you. We talked about the pregame prep and actually getting ready for the event and building up to it. You got to the locker room. You actually got to the building. You were met by your host rep and got in the locker room. And we'll start with Ethan. Ethan, do you remember who you met?
I do. It's a day that I will never forget personally, probably as long as I live. Mike Lego, Francis St. Laurent, Mark Suchik, and Matt McPherson.
Okay. Erika, do you remember who you met?
Yeah, I think I had, now I just, one of the same guys. The French name, I can't remember now.
Francois.
Who else? Yep, I had him. Devin Murray, Johnny, I don't remember his last name. And then Chris Rooney.
Okay, Chris Rooney, another well-established American official. Worked a couple of Stanley Cup finals. Started out, he used to do our camps a long time ago, back when he first got into the NHL. He doesn't quite so much now, but he actually does participate from time to time in some of our programs. But great guy from the Boston area. Has had a great career in the National Hockey League. So what kind of topics, and we'll go to Erika, what kind of topics did you discuss in the locker room?
And just like kind of how they started and their path, and any advice that they have, for what helped them get to their level that they're at.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Did you any big lessons, or what was your biggest takeaway when you were kind of picking their brains and learning, and what did you want to write down as soon as you got home?
Yeah, I mean, basically just take in, like, when you have supervisors, just take in that information and learn from your partners. And when you're doing a game, it's you can't do everything at once, so take a little bit at a time, and you apply that to your game, and build on top of that.
Okay, Ethan, what was your biggest takeaway?
My biggest takeaway was just the amount of how much they preach to know a rule book or know the rule book of the league you're working in. The rule book's always going to defend you. If a coach has any questions or anything, they said, try to remember as much as you can. We know it's a big book, but you got to do what you got to do if you want to get to the levels you want to get to. How to stay in shape, what they do to stay in shape. And then just make sure every time you go on the ice that you're mentally there, mentally prepared, and, focused on the game. Because, even if it's a mite game or all the way up to an all NAHL game, all those kids kind of take it the same, and, they just want to have a fair game and a good outcome. So they just said, be prepared and don't let the moment get to you whenever you're in it. So.
No, all really, really good, valuable points that, and then we appreciate the fact that you guys, the two of you, shared what you learned in that locker room, because not everybody gets to participate in this program. Not everybody gets the opportunity to meet NHL officials. So the fact that you took that information that you learned in the locker room and shared it here on the Zoomcast with everyone who's watching, not only now, but our on-demand episodes in the future, that's passing that information forward. We have the same expectations of all of our participants in summer camps. You come to our summer development camps, or say you come to a district officiating seminar, you have that obligation to share what you learned with other grassroots officials in your area. So thank you for sharing that information. We'll change gears just a little bit, and we'll go over to Shannon and talk a little bit about the host ending of it. And Shannon, we can't do this without the help of the back office of the NHL teams. And all the various clubs that are hosting a game during Hockey Week across America. I reach out to all you guys, and all of you are amazing to work with and to basically interact with and coordinate this with. Same time, I know what I do. Basically, I collect names from the RICs as far as who's ultimately going to participate in this thing, but I pass it off to you. I really have no idea what happens on the back end of things with the NHL clubs. Just maybe you could walk us through a little bit as far as game operations and any coordination that's done with the NHL teams.
Yeah, so I mean, we accept the invitation to host on a specific date, and then from there we immediately request tickets for obviously the official that's participating as well as family, and then we quickly turn around and communicate with other departments. So we make sure that names are announced for game presentation. We have a little introduction for you guys. People understand, the 18,000 people in attendance understand what's going on and why two smaller, in most cases, officials are skating onto the ice. And then it turns to just game day logistics. Building, obviously you guys need a place to get ready, get your skates on, security. Typically we have participants come in 90 minutes early, so it's actually before fans get in the building as well. And that's so that you guys are there in plenty of time to meet the officials and watch warm-ups and get the tour. And then, I mean, it goes all the way through to, securing your locker room, security, getting you guys in, escorting you guys down, making sure that we know where all the officials are going to be after their pre-game meeting, and we can make that first introduction. And then usually in my case, Jim takes it from there and coordinates with the game officials.
And Jim, of course, being Jim Weaver, our district referee in chief of the Mid-American district out there. He lives out there in Pittsburgh and actually works for the NHL as an off-ice official. I believe he's a stat guy these days, but he's actually worked with the Pittsburgh Penguins for a number of years as an off-ice official. And he's done great work, inside work for us with the Penguins as far as interacting with your staff. As far as like operations, like game day operations, you must do a lot. I would think like every game must have at least a handful going on, correct?
Yeah, it just depends on the game, but usually we have at least junior starter if we have officials going out, and then we have intermission stuff as well. So that's just in Pittsburgh case. A lot of other clubs will do some pregame activities, but usually the youth hockey focus takes the intermissions for sure.
Oh, for sure. Hopefully our coordination, hopefully we're fairly low maintenance when we do our thing. We pride ourselves when we interact with anyone, be it college campus representatives because we're setting up a camp, or hotel people or whatever. We pride ourselves on being as low maintenance as possible when we do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, this one's not too complicated to coordinate. It's just making sure everyone knows it's coming. But usually people are really excited to welcome you guys into the building.
Yeah, and it's never ceases to amaze me. I've been coordinating this from the national level for about 6 or 7 years now. And I can think when I first started doing it and working with NHL clubs and where it's come now, it's really, really grown. It's grown from as simple as basically 2 young officials and a parent each basically showing up and being brought to the locker room and being brought upstairs. Next thing you know, they're going on the ice. as you saw in that video there. In Pittsburgh, they've stepped up and followed that same path where they allow them to go out there and actually stand for the national anthem in front of 18,000 fans in the building. They're sitting there amongst their heroes. The NHL officials right there on the center red line, the national anthem's playing. They look off to their left, they see Sidney Crosby right there on the bench. And all I'm doing is praying to God that they don't pass out, and just basically it overwhelms them when they pass out there on the ice. But yeah, it's amazing what the NHL clubs, how far they've taken, and they've really upped the game and really making these officials feeling welcome and making the experience as special as it can be. But I think there's certainly an element, I think, and there's something to be gained for the NHL clubs. There's something to be said about that connectivity with the grassroots hockey community, not only teams and players, but even officials as well. Like everybody's potentially a fan, correct, Shannon?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially at the Penguins, like we have a huge focus on youth hockey. We're constantly out making sure associations don't have questions or don't need extra support. And a big part of that is just bringing new players into the game. So, I mean, on average in our market, we have 1,000 to 1,200 little Penguins or learn to play participants come in each season. And with that, I mean, those are the kids that are going to grow up and they're going to continue in the game, and they're hopefully going to fall in love with the game. And you never know where that's going to take them. Quite possibly it could be coaching, it could be officiating, and it could be continuing to play and coming back as an adult. But all of that really makes our youth hockey community thrive. And in turn, that makes a bigger fan base for our NHL club. And that connectivity and having that link to USA Hockey on that side of it. And also just being able to walk into any rink and see people wearing Penguins attire and sweatshirts and hats and beanies when it's colder out. That's what being in an NHL club and being within our market is all about. And really, it is that connectivity that means so much and will continue to grow.
No, you make some really great points with that. I mean, basically, you want to build a fan for life. We here at USA Hockey, we're all about membership. We want basically people to participate in the sport of ice hockey in America for their entire lifetime. They start at the very grassroots, like cross ice 8 and under, and progress to the youth hockey realm, and then they move on to, say, adult league, or maybe they become an official, maybe they become a coach, but ultimately they stay that same fan and engaged to the game. And I think it's no different for you in there in Pittsburgh. You ultimately want to turn as many people out there living in the area and outside the area. Even if they leave Pittsburgh and they move to the West Coast or whatever, they stay Pittsburgh fans and they don't leave you, and they stay there and support you, and basically every season.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. We do have a very loyal fan base. So we have a ton of Canadian fans, obviously, and fans all around the US. But I mean, even if it's just watching a Penguins game when you're out in Texas, that all comes back, and we see those numbers as an NHL club. And ultimately that's what it comes down to. And we know our fan base is wide, and they can't all be one of those 18,000 in the building every night. But at the same time, being able to provide that support and our brand in front of them helps us as a company grow in a lot of different ways. But specifically when it comes to youth hockey, I mean, you never know what kid's going to fall in love with the game and what direction it's going to take them.
No, for sure. What other types of programs do you run? Just like a little laundry list of other types of programs in game or even outside of the game. What are the types of things do you do with your fan base?
That's a great question. We obviously have the league-wide Learn to Play program, and ours is the Little Penguins. We're going on 13 seasons right now with that. So overall, we've had over 13,000 kids participate and go through that program. Other than that, I mean, we support the Hockey is for Everyone programs, all of your disabled section disciplines in our market, in addition to all youth hockey, tier 1, tier 2, local and house leagues. So it's really the broad spectrum here in Pittsburgh. For as far as game day programs, in-game includes like junior starter of the game, which is a youth participant getting to stand on the blue line amongst our club starting players for the national anthem and getting the introduction. We have high school player of the month. So we recognize our local high school league selects 4 players every month to recognize and honor, and we host them at a game similar to the officials program. And then we also do our intermission program generally during the first intermission, and it's either, we call it puck pals, but it's either a cross ice game, a shootout, or we do occasional relays as well. So that's kind of our in-game set. And then as far as other game day activities, we actually host associations on specific nights during the week. So association can kind of put a call out to all of their levels and all their participants and bring their family, and we'll offer up basically a pre-game ice time for a 50-minute game for two teams to complete against each other in our building. And then we have people in penalty boxes for warm-ups. We have junior starter that they get. We have Zamboni rides in between periods, and then they also get the intermission activity. So it's all the same youth hockey association throughout, and it kind of gives them not only the honor, but a reason to celebrate with all their friends and family in the building as well.
You're things you often talk about you offer. I hear the term "try hockey for free." I hear the term "hockey is for everyone" and diversity and all that. You're not that far removed from USA Hockey, are you?
No, there's a lot of skills and a lot of background knowledge. It definitely applies itself well still.
That's it. That the relationship never dies. I mean, back when you were living here and basically working under Kevin Erlenbaugh, and basically you were constantly interacting not only with the youth hockey associations across the country, but even the NHL clubs as well, to again drive, from a USA Hockey standpoint, drive that connectivity between the clubs and the youth associations, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest takeaway from the role there is every club is so different. They're all set up very structurally different, but at the end of the day, every club's focus is still that driving factor. If we grow participants in the sport and we introduce the sport to more kids through schools, through on-ice programs, we also offer deck programs and deck learn to play in our area. But the more kids we can get stick in their hand and expose them to the sport, again, our fan base is going to grow. At that point, the results are kind of astonishing and endless. So, I mean, I think every club has definitely recognized that fact. The league has recognized that fact. And ultimately, I mean, the NHLPA has as well. And they put funds forward and offer opportunities for clubs to apply for those funds so that we can grow the game even more.
Bottom line, it's faces. Basically making sure when they walk off the ice, they got a smile on their face. They went out there, they had fun, and they build that passion and enjoyment within the sport. We'll switch gears again. We'll kind of go back to our two officials here. As we talked a little bit about the showcase and the features of the program, you go through your locker room meeting and you have that chance to meet the NHL officials. The next great part about it is, you're in the building anyways, so you might as well hang out and watch the game. So kind of relating more to back to that question that I asked in the poll, we'll go to Ethan first. Did you, we'll let Erika catch her breath a little bit more because she's still coming off a game. Ethan, after you got done with that locker room conversation and you're watching the guys from upstairs during the game, did you, were you kind of picking up little pointers and things like that? Did you kind of take what you learned downstairs and try to watch it and see how it translated out there on the ice?
Absolutely. For me, whenever I go to a Stars game here locally in Dallas, if I don't go when the Ducks are in town, because if I go to a Ducks game, I'm watching the game. I'm not watching the refs. But if I go whenever the Stars are playing whoever, like if my buddies are going, I'm 90% of the time watching the refs. Even now, with me being 9 years official, even now I still watch them just to see what they do. I remember. It was funny. They were talking about like keeping your cool in, tough situations. The first penalty of the game was a 5-game elbow to the face of, I can't remember, Daly whenever he was still on the team. So it was interesting. But, yeah, definitely watched them during the game, especially when I was that fresh into, starting as an official, just to see how they position themselves. The confidence they exude, just to make sure I picked up on those little subtle things. So,
for sure. Actually, I'll throw this question right back to you, Ethan, because I asked the question in the poll. Do you actually have a favorite NHL official, or did you have an NHL official who was your hero or still is your hero?
Yeah, I actually have a couple. Obviously, everybody loves Wes. He's a legend, so can't go wrong with Wes. Two others are Trevor Hansen and Francis Sharon. Those are like kind of my three guys where the Ducks aren't playing in a night. I'll turn on NHL Center Ice, find a game they're working, and watch them every night to see how they position themselves. Just little subtle things they do that I can take to my game.
Outstanding. Go back to Erika. Erika, how about you watching the game from upstairs? Were you kind of picking things up as you watched the guys work their game?
Well, all right, got that on mute. Okay. So yeah, I mean, watching it, and it's like now even as I watch it, even on TV, I'm like, oh, I'm not even watching the game. I'm just watching like, what the linesmen are doing or, what the ref is doing. So I can just, if I like something, like add that to my game.
And how about you? Do you have any NHL officials that you prefer watching? Because you're kind of being developed as a linesman, so I'm guessing you're kind of looking at watching those guys more than the referees.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I like West though. I mean, but even though it's a referee, but I guess not really a specific linesman. Let's watch any of them.
Okay, yeah, right on. So you gain that knowledge. You pick up little things in the locker room. You certainly write down and save for later. Certainly watching the game and watching games also on television as well. Picking little things up here and there. What have you applied and how have you applied it? We'll go to Ethan.
Just how the guys work around the goal line. For me, I'm a referee. So watching the referees, how they work at the goal and the triangle, tight turns in the corners, making sure that their positioning is solid whenever they need to be right in front of the goal, whenever there's a tough situation, moving around the net, trying to find the puck when it's loose, seeing how determined they are to make sure they get the call right every time. So I think those are just some things that I've taken from my game to, let the game come to you in a sense, not force the game and call on the stuff that you see and, that's a penalty. So that's what I've taken.
Make a really, really good point. I just recently read an article in Referee Magazine. They're featured online. You can go to refereemagazine.com, and they do a lot of really good officials. Obviously, it's broad. It goes across the board, not only hockey. They do basketball, football, baseball, all that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of articles in there that actually apply broadly to all officiating. And one of the most recent articles was the idea of don't go out there looking for calls. Basically don't go in that mindset. It's my job to call penalties. It's my job to go out there and look for the offenders. But as Ethan, as you said, and watching the NHL officials kind of drives that point home to you is let the game come to you. Let the penalties come to you as opposed to trying to steer the game.
Yeah, I found if you try to steer the game, it usually doesn't work in your favor when I was very young and coming up as an official. So that was the biggest piece of advice that I got and still take to this day is just, letting the game come to you. Don't worry about what coaches are going to say, players are saying. You just work the game and work it to the best of your ability and just have confidence.
No, you're absolutely right. I think there aren't too many officials out there that haven't made that mistake and fallen into that trap, that mentality of, I got to call penalties out there. It's expected of me. I have to make those types of calls. There's almost a kind of a fallacy mindset out there that officials are out there to control the game. When the reality of it is we can't. A player wants to go and slash a player. There's not really much we can do to preempt that slash. That slash is going to happen if the player really wants to slash the player. Ultimately, we can manage the game through penalties and basically staying consistent, so everyone knows where that line is and where what side of the line you're on when you go out there. And that's ultimately the best thing we do. That and communication, of course. We had a Zoomcast episode. I think it was episode 3 or 2 or something like that, where we talked about communication with teams and coaches and how you can build rapport with teams and trust with teams and manage players better with good communication out there on the ice, as opposed to just being the guy mean mugging everybody out there on the ice and just calling every penalty that you can find.
Yeah, the best advice I've told is players make the news, we just report it.
It's a good piece of advice. Very good piece of advice. Erika, what you coming out of your experience of meeting the NHL officials, what have you applied?
Well, I think like what I said earlier, just how taking every little thing, when we get supervised and we're at games, tournaments, just writing everything down and taking it in, working with your, learning from your partners that you're with and, kind of applying that little by little to your game and, being the best that you can out there.
Certainly. All really, really good pieces of advice. And I apologize, everyone is watching and watching on demand as well later on. Erika's few technical issues. Lake Placid, New York is not exactly known for its Wi-Fi.
Is it?
It's not exactly prolific as far as Wi-Fi signals, and they're not 5G. I could say that they're like maybe like 3.5G at best. But it is what it is. That being said, they're the Olympic Center there, where the ice hockey games are being played, and of course the Olympic Training Center out there. They're always accommodating to USA Hockey, and they take really good care of us. So, but yeah, looks like we had. Oh no, just a comment, not a question. Okay. So I guess kind of, you know what? I actually have another poll that I was just reminded of. So I'm actually going to ask this right now. Poll number 2 for those of you who are participating here. And I'll launch the poll. Question number 1: if you have a favorite NHL team, how did you build that loyalty to that club? And you can select all that apply. And we got a bunch of choices here. Got to support the hometown team. That's the reason you follow them. My favorite player plays for them. Sometimes people follow individual players as opposed to teams. They're a really big fan of the player, and they just buy a new jersey every time they're traded. It's the rival team of the team my brother or sister follows, and it's a chivalry rivalry thing. You know, she's a Flyers fan, so I'm a Penguins fan. You know, basically, and that's just the way it works. Or my dad just basically came into the living room one day and said, "We are a Kraken family now." Plain and simple. That's the way it is. Bottom line, we're Kraken fans. Or other. If you have another reason that you picked your favorite NHL club, feel free to throw it into the chat feature here in Zoom, or even if you don't have a favorite NHL club. Question number 2: have you ever participated in any NHL team fan events? So have you ever either been reached out to by an NHL club or had the opportunity to participate in some fan type of event, be it pregame for an NHL game, postgame for an NHL game, or maybe a player appearance came to something that you participated in, some group outing, or maybe in your school you had a NHL player come in and visit? And question number 3: how many NHL games have you attended in your lifetime? And the options are 0, 1 to 5, 6 to 12, and 13 to 15. And we'll leave that up there for about another 5 seconds or so, let the answers roll in, and we'll take a look at the results. Okay, we'll wrap that up with 13 of our 17 districts reporting with voting. Question number 1: if you have a favorite NHL team, how did you build loyalty to that club? And overwhelmingly, 3/4 of you said, got to support the hometown team. And I actually respect that. I very much, I have my teams that I do follow myself in hockey and otherwise. And I do believe in the mindset of you always root for the hometown team. Now, kind of in a case of maybe you relocate, kind of like we were talking about with Shannon earlier, maybe you grew up in Pittsburgh and you grew up a Penguins fan, but then all of a sudden you move out to the West Coast. Nothing wrong with staying that loyal, staying with that loyalty and remaining a Penguins fan as opposed to adopting one of the West Coast clubs. A few of you said my favorite player plays for you, so you're following the players around. Certainly understand that. I think actually a couple of you actually said you don't have a favorite NHL club. Second question: have you ever participated in an NHL team fan event? And most of you said no. About 2/3 of you said you never. And that maybe you don't live in an NHL city. That's very possible that you never had that opportunity just because you don't live in the area where you can attend NHL games or interact with the NHL teams. But that being said, there's a third of you that have actually participated in that. How many NHL games have you attended in your lifetime? Looks like a split. Most of you said 1 to 5 or 25 plus. So it looks like we got a couple of season ticket holders here in our participants as well. But again, appreciate you guys sharing your information and passing that along to us. Like I said, there's no prizes awarded, but we just really like watching you engage in the poll. So coming off of that, Shannon, you talked a little bit about hosting organizations, hosting local associations and stuff like that. And I've seen more of this with NHL clubs, they're going a little bit above and beyond just the Hockey Week Across America thing. I know one club in particular, they actually do above and beyond the one annual event in February. They actually now feature officials every single month. Other areas, they do something where they recognize the local officials association, the XYZ Hockey Referees Association. They all come in droves on a particular night, and they all sit together in the stands and basically have a fun night out, and they're recognized. Do you currently host anything like that, or is it just the Hockey Week?
Well, last season it was just the Hockey Week. We had a couple other things on the docket. We hosted the U.S. and Canadian national women's teams for a couple, well, camp and then a couple exhibition games, and we were actually going to host this program during those games as well, because we had the junior starter player and all that kind of stuff going on as well. Unfortunately, logistics got in the way there, and we weren't able to do it. Going forward, we're going to also try and do this program when we celebrate in March, Gender Equality Month. So we'll host specifically 2 female officials come out for that. And then we're also looking to get a little bit more of a mentorship program going in the future. I'd like to say it'd be next year, but it might be pushed with COVID going on right now. So we're constantly looking for different ways. And I know a couple other clubs have now engaged officials when they host jamborees and stuff like that. Try and give kids a different experience and try and get them into their building a little bit and give them a tour or something else behind the scenes.
That's fantastic. NHL officials, the majority of them are they're hockey fans as well. So those types of opportunities where they can see the inside, see the inside of the rink and have that opportunity to maybe see the inside of the dressing room, or even just where they train or where press conferences are held or whatever. Just, I know Jim Weaver out there, when he hosts the officials, he typically brings them upstairs to the video replay booth, which how often have you actually on? I mean, pretty much just TVs and a keyboard, but for the most part, to see that end of it and get an inside look at that, it's got to be pretty special for them.
Yeah, I actually haven't been up there yet. Jim doesn't even take me up there, so
I'll make it happen.
I'll still give him a hard time about that, but otherwise it's pretty cool to kind of learn the ins and outs of the building and how big they are. I mean, I remember the first time I went in our games presentation booth, I was blown away by the number of staff and monitors that it takes to do all the in-arena items that are going on at the same time. So it's definitely a complex operation, but any insight there, I was always thrilled to get as a kid, and now working there, definitely want to provide that access and view behind the scenes to everyone else.
Oh, for sure. If let's say the local officials association want to do something like this, they wanted to do a group outing where they all come together and just watch a game together. I know some areas actually what they'll do is they'll bring officials in and actually do a pre-game seminar where they'll come in, like say an hour or two earlier, and actually do a pre-game seminar or some sort of continuing in-season continuing education program where they'll just talk about rules for an hour before the game. And I know you can only speak on behalf of the Penguins, but maybe you can kind of give us at least an idea. If they wanted to reach out to someone, who would they reach out to?
Yeah, I mean, probably the easiest route would be to get in contact with your district referee in chief and have them reach out to BJ, and he can kind of tap his NHL clubs contacts. But generally, if you're looking on the website, it depends on the club structure, but look for a youth hockey connection under like marketing or community relations. A lot of people house their youth hockey person within those 2 departments. Otherwise, it might be a different department. For instance, like I am here, but I'm actually listed under the foundation. So it kind of just depends. I mean, feel free to reach out in any way you can, and anyone internally at any of these clubs can direct you accordingly.
So basically, you're saying general manager might be a little too high up the ladder, possibly.
Yeah, I might not send that email. It just might not go very far, but.
Fair enough. Okay. Trying to give them the best, just trying to set them all up for success.
You never know.
Actually, you never know. You catch the general manager on a good day. General manager's got a couple of kids of their own, and or maybe they are officials. Maybe they buy in immediately. This is the greatest idea on earth. Going back to our 2 officials and participants, bottom line, and this is maybe like the $64,000 question, and we'll go with Erika first. Has the hockey weekend across America, Meet the NHL Officials Program, has it helped you? Has it helped you with your development?
Definitely, because like you see you can like see like what it takes to get to the top up there, like what they've, you know, worked at and what, you know, what can be possible. So it's, I mean, gives you something to, I guess, go work for and, you know, attain to or aspire to.
Excellent. Thank you. And same thing to Ethan. Has it helped you?
Yeah, absolutely. Really helped me just, you know, see the dedication and the amount of work they put into, you know, perfect their craft almost. I mean, these guys are at that most highest level of, you know, hockey in the world. So just to see the amount of dedication and work you put in, you know, it's the same thing you got to put in if you want to move up, whether, you know, you're starting from the bottom and trying to get to juniors or NCAA or whatever, you got to, you know, put in the same work.
They're very, very serious. Well, they're fun guys and they're really funny and fun to engage with and interact with, but at the same time, they are very serious about what they do. You know, there's a reason why they work the best league in the world. And they are some of the best officials in the world because they've dedicated and they every single day they're working, whether it be physically and keeping themselves in shape, both in season and off season, you know, managing their diet, particularly the older ones, the guys who are kind of getting into their 40s and 50s. They're not 20 years old anymore. They're not 30 years old anymore. They have to manage and maintain their weight and maintain their fitness level if they want to continue and basically hit whatever milestone, game count milestone or season milestone they want to hit. If they want to get to that, it's important that they stay engaged and stay focused on maintaining their fitness levels. And at the same time, I think Ethan, you hit on it. Rule book knowledge, and it's basically how much they are constantly reading the rule books and getting back into the rule books. Brian Pochmara, a longtime NHL official based out of the Detroit area. He's a guy I came up with through junior hockey and minor pro. It never ceased to amaze me how often he had his nose in the book. And he was really just a savant and a real rule book geek, probably one of the biggest rule book geeks I've ever met in my life. He builds off that foundation of rule knowledge, and that's what makes him so successful out there. With that, we are coming up to the top of the hour, and I think I might actually come in under the hour for once. I don't think I've ever done that so far with all the Zoomcasts that I've hosted, but we will kind of wrap things up. It doesn't look like we have any open questions from our audience, so we'll share our upcoming schedule. As you can see, we're here on January 26th. We're doing USA Hockey Week across America and sharing all there is about that program. Next week, Scott Zelkin is going to be back in the captain's chair and hosting, and we're going to be talking about restraining fouls. So not too long ago, we talked about the declaration of player safety and aggressive fouls like head contact and checking from behind and boarding and those aggressive type infractions that happen. And of course, the declaration of player safety is seeing more and more success within our game of improving the standard of play within our game and ultimately helping players make right choices and not make bad choices that land them in the box for two and 10s. That being said, we're going after those aggressive fouls, but at the same time, restraining fouls are just as important because we're going after body contact fouls. We don't just forget about the hooks and the slashes and the things that can creep back into our game as players, get a little tired, get a little desperate, and cheat a little bit by getting their stick up there and hooking a player to gain an unfair advantage. And Scott's going to be joined by Kaylin Urkel, who is an IIHF official herself, also works the NCAA level. And then Peter Schlittenhart, who works the American Hockey League as well as the IIHF, two referees well established in the levels that they're working at. They're going to be joining Scott and talking about restraining fouls, identifying them, managing player behavior out there, and why it's so important to make sure that those types of fouls don't work their way into our game. After that, we're going to go through a USA Hockey rule change update. As most of you know, we're going through our rule change process right now with USA Hockey. We had an episode back in, I believe it was October or November, where we talked about all the rule change proposals that were submitted to USA Hockey. And feel free to go back and check out that episode and learn what the ultimate rule change process is with USA Hockey. But now we're actually going to talk about the update of where certain rule change proposals stand, where the overall process stands, and what's on the horizon here as we close out the season here, and then we move forward to the 2021 annual Congress, where our board of directors will ultimately vote on what our playing rules are going to be for the next four seasons. And then lastly, that's really what this, another part of what this episode is all about. You'll see the Meet the NHL Officials episode there on February 16th. February 16th falls within USA Hockey Week across America for the 2021 season. Obviously, with the COVID restrictions and all that, and arenas only allowing very, very limited fans, in addition to obviously the fans and in addition to the players and the officials and the team staff, to work something out like this would be very, very difficult to do that in the locker room and have them in the building type of experience. So what we coordinated, and we're working hand in hand with the NHL Officials Association to have a handful of NHL officials on that week's Zoomcast. I'd love to throw the names out right now, but obviously with the NHL schedule and the game assignments that the NHL officials get, we haven't quite been able to nail the officials down to a 100% commitment. So I don't want to put names out there and basically sell any names that unfortunately the guy has to bail on us because he actually has a game assignment that he has to commit himself to. So, but that feel free to register for that event and join us as we do our first ever virtual Meet the NHL Officials program. Also, with that schedule update, you'll see the social media channels. Please feel free to find us and follow us on both on Twitter and Instagram, where we do regular updates from both the officiating program. At the same time, we share things from the general USA Hockey channels as well. So check those out. Feel free to follow us and like us and share our information there. You'll see a survey reminder for our participants here. Once you wrap up, we do a survey through SurveyMonkey where you can give feedback and basically tell us what you liked about this episode, what you didn't quite like about this episode. It's no different from any other camp or any other program we run. We always want feedback from our participants because it's your feedback that ultimately helps us make these types of programs better. And don't forget that one question where we ask you about suggestions for future topics. We're always looking for topic ideas. We want to know what you as our participants, you as our membership, what you'd like us to discuss in one of these upcoming Zoomcasts. So with that, I'll also thank all the participants for joining us. If this is the first time you've ever joined us here on the Zoomcast, welcome. We hope to see you on a lot of future ones as we continue with this program that we have so much fun doing. And for the dedicated followers, the ones that have missed barely any episodes, if they've missed any episodes at all, thank you so much for your dedication and support, watching us week in and week out. And we really appreciate delivering this to you week in over the course of the season. Thanks to the panelists. Thank you, Ethan, Shannon, Erika. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules and your personal schedules as well to join us and share your experiences, both in the program itself. And Shannon, of course, giving us a little bit of an insight what goes on within the back offices of the NHL club, putting something like this together. We really appreciate it. And certainly success with all of you as you progress through the rest of your season here. So with that, we'll wrap things up. And so I'm BJ Ringrose, manager of the Officiating Education Program, on behalf of USA Hockey, saying thank you for your dedication to USA Hockey.